Is, as I said, almost every day we are finding one article on these subsidies. Even today also we had seen one article on Hindu or in Hindu on subsidies, right? So yesterday we were looking at the moral dimension of these subsidies. Let us proceed and look at all other dimensions, right? Let us look at all other dimensions. So what we have said is that these subsidies, if they are given to undeserving sections of society for other than meritorious reasons, they can result in economy going down, productivity levels decreasing, public debt going up, and finally it can lead to what we call the destruction of economic systems. That is what we have said. We also have said that these subsidies can result in more unproductive population also. When people are giving something free of cost, they would never realize the importance of it. So proceeding further, let us look at, as I said, what are the different types of subsidies that are given and how these subsidies impact on the economic system. Today I think in Times of India, D. Subbarao, former RBI governor and former finance secretary, he had also written an article on subsidies. So let us see. As I said that normally we can divide these subsidies into two categories. One is merit subsidies, non-merit subsidies. These subsidies we can broadly divide them into two categories: merit and non-merit subsidies. Broadly we can divide them into two categories: merit and non-merit. So what are these? As the name itself indicates, merit subsidies means those subsidies that can be justified from ethical perspective. That can be justified from ethical perspective. That can be justified from economic perspective also. That can be justified from economic perspective also. Ethical as well as economic perspective. What do we mean by that? As we know, no society in the world can be called as an egalitarian society. No country in the world has egalitarian society. No country in the world has egalitarian society. Egalitarian society means classless societies, equal opportunities societies. No country in the world has this egalitarian societies. For example, in you are part of a running race, right? You are running and there are 10 people who are running. All of you should start from the same point at the same time. Then we can call it as equal opportunities, right? One person is it is say 1 kilometer. You are starting at 0 kilometers. One person is starting at 5.5 kilometers, another person at 0.8 kilometers. Can it be called equal opportunities? Obviously not. So same manner, you take societies, there are people who are rich and there are people who are poor. There are people who are rich and there are people who are poor. So can we have this equality before law for all of them? What we call it as rule of law. Can we have this equality before law? Which is fine. This equality before law is necessary for those societies which are what we call egalitarian societies. So obviously what is required is what we call equity. That means you must be biased in favor of weaker sections, poorer sections. You must make sure that this person should also be reaching this level, so that you can have equal opportunity societies. And this is where the subsidies are justified from ethical perspective. That is, the subsidies need merit. These subsidies can be justified in terms of moving towards what we call an egalitarian societies. You cannot expect the person who is extremely rich and the person who does not have access to any basic means of livelihood to start at the same point and compete with each other. Obviously, this is completely ethically unjustified. And that is the reason why what you have to do is that you have to make sure that this poor person also can reach to this level. Then you can talk about merit and efficiency and competency, everything else. So how to make sure that this poor person can also become rich? Can he afford the kind of quality education that a rich person can have access to? Can he afford the quality healthcare a rich person has access to? Can he afford the infrastructure in the form of safe drinking water, in the form of nutritious food, in the form of continuous electricity, in the form of continuous access to technology? Is it possible for a poor person to afford all these things on his own? And is it a crime that he took birth in that particular family? Unfortunately, in our societies, everything is decided on the basis of your birth. What is the reason why Mukesh Ambani's son will never think about preparing for UPSC? Why only you people prepare? Why? What is the reason why? Why Mukesh Ambani's son does not have to think for preparing for UPSC? Why? Because he can get any of the IAS officers to his house at any point of time, as and when he wants. Why should you get into civil services when the entire government is there at your disposal? Why should you unnecessarily waste your time? On the other hand, why you are preparing? You know well, right? So that is what we say at the end of the day. At the end of the day, if we have to move towards the so-called egalitarian societies, what is required is the support of the government. The government has to support the poor people. As I said, you need nutritious food, you need safe drinking water, you need better access to health care, you need better access to infrastructure, and then you need better access to education. Then only what we call human resource development is possible. Then only human resource development is possible. So can the poor people afford any of these things? So should they be left to fend themselves, saying that either you try to survive or perish? If you cannot survive, you can perish. Can they be left to fend themselves? Obviously not. And that is the reason why these subsidies are justified from the perspective of establishing egalitarian societies. Every person, as we have discussed, as part of Article 21 of our Constitution, right to life and liberty includes. Supreme Court has liberally interpreted this right to life. It said that right to life includes right to have a quality education. Right to life includes right to have better access to health. Right to life includes right to have dignified existence. Right to life includes right to have a safe drinking access to safe drinking water. These were all the judgments given by the Supreme Court at different points of time. So, will the private sector come to the rescue of all these poor people? As we study in capitalism, there is no free lunch. What do you mean by that? In capitalism, there is no free lunch. That means nobody will give you even a single penny, single paisa, nobody will give you a single rupee free of cost. For everything that you are earning, for everything that you want to spend, You must earn the money before that. Yes. I am talking about capitalism. I am not talking about United States of America. United States of America has capitalism in its economy, but America is a welfare state. I am talking about capitalism as a market condition, market form. America has a welfare state, wherein their government gives everything free of cost. There also, that is the reason why their government is also facing so many problems now. We are not talking about the government here, we are talking about the markets in the private sector. In the private sector, nobody will give you anything free of cost. In the private sector, nobody will give you anything free of cost. During the corona crisis, you must have seen the private corporate hospitals have charged huge amounts of money, running into lakhs of rupees. Did they say that people are suffering, so we will reduce our prices? Obviously not. That is what we say here. So who has to take care of all of them? Obviously it has to be the state. And that is where we talk about these merit subsidies. So these subsidies are justified, as we say, these subsidies are justified from the perspective of removing inequalities in the distribution of income and wealth, from the perspective of establishing egalitarian societies, from the perspective of developing human resources, what you call human resource development, from the perspective of long-term economic growth and development of the country. Because for any country, the most important resource is human beings. It is not the technology, it is not the physical resources, it is not the natural resources, it is not the capital, it is not the finances. For any country, the most important source is their human resources. So what you have to do? What you have to do is that you have to develop human resources. At the end of the day, you have to develop your human resources. You have to provide better health, better education, so that as we study, you are able to transform your demographic bulge into demographic dividend. Private sector, as I mentioned, will not do any of these things. It is not at all concerned. Private sector is only concerned about those people who can pay for services. And those who cannot pay for services will not be on the radar of the private sector. So from economic perspective, from ethical perspective, and from developmental perspective, what we require is these merit subsidies. And you take from a social perspective also. For example, if there are widening inequalities, rich people are becoming richer and poor people poorer, and poor people don't have any access to basic means of health. What happens after some point of time, as we study? If the rich people are exploiting the poor people in the name of capitalism, if rich people are exploiting poor people in the name of capitalism, and the government is also aiding the rich people in the name of economic growth, then what happens? Poor people will be adversely impacted. For how long can they have the kind of patience to see that the fruits of development would reach them? What you call it as trickle down effect. For how long will they have the patience? Can you ask them to wait forever to get the fruits of development? Obviously not. Then what happens? What would be the consequence then? The immediate consequence would be revolution, law and order problems. So these subsidies, we can say, are justified in the from the perspective of what we call sociological dimension also. It can result in social unrest if there is unequal development. If there is unequal development, it can result in social unrest. What is the social unrest that we talk about? In the form of Naxalism, in the form of terrorism, in the form of secessionist tendencies. This is what we say: Naxalism, terrorism, secessionist tendencies, in the form of regionalism or caste-based conflicts. What is the origin of all these? What is the origin of all these conflicts? Unequal development. Unequal development. In the name of capitalism and laissez-faire state. Laissez-faire state means wherein the state does not interfere in the activities of the people. It will not interfere in the activities of the people, thinking that people are capable of solving all their problems. It is based on the rationality of individuals in economic theory. So if the state does not interfere, then what happens? There will be more growing inequalities, and these inequalities can result in social unrest, which can ultimately lead to severe law and order problems also. So how to prevent them? How to prevent the social unrest? What is required is these subsidies. You have to help those poor sections of society. You have to provide immediate benefits to them. As we have said, if a country grows at 9% per annum, if the country grows at 9% per annum for a period of 20 years continuously, you can definitely remove poverty. This is basic economic theory that we know. If any country grows at 9% per annum, especially a country like India, for a period of 20 years, definitely you can remove your poverty. So for those 20 years, what should the poor people do? What should the poor people do for those 20 years? Prepare for UPSC, right? What should the poor people do? These subsidies are needed to take care of the immediate needs of people, existential needs of people. These subsidies are needed to take care of the immediate existential needs of people. For example, if these subsidies are needed to make survival easier for them, you cannot expect them to earn money immediately unless you create the necessary conditions for their empowerment. And can they wait forever to receive the benefits of economic growth and development? Right? In 1950s, right, United States of America had come out with this new rights philosophy. As part of this, America had opted for welfareism. As we have discussed, the failure of the markets has forced the state to enter into the domain of markets and fill in the void created by non-performance of markets. That is how this welfarist approach had started, and it has spread to all the countries around the world. So from 1950s onwards, almost every country in the world had opted for this welfareism. It was justified from all the dimensions that we have mentioned, from economic dimension, from ethical perspective, from the perspective of politics. Why? Because in a welfare state, in a democracy, political parties have to win elections. How can they win elections? How can they win elections? Only when they satisfy the demands of the people. When they satisfy the demands of people. That led to what we call competitive populism also. And from the sociological dimension, from the dimension of law and order, from all these dimensions, these subsidies have been justified. They have been justified, saying that they are needed for establishing egalitarian societies in the long term. Right? Now, the billion-dollar question, or if you want to say trillion-dollar question, because the subsidies are going up very high. The question that we have to ask here is that what kind of subsidies are justified, and whether those subsidies are also justified or not, and for how long can these subsidies be given, how to finance those subsidies, and who will be bearing the brunt of these subsidies. As we study in public policies, a public policy is also always a two-person zero-sum game, right? A public policy is always a two-person zero-sum game. If someone is receiving subsidy, means someone else is paying for this subsidy. right? If someone is receiving subsidy means someone else is paying for subsidy. And who is paying for it? Or is it the case that the person who is receiving subsidy is also paying for it? Is it the case that a person who is receiving subsidy is also paying for it? I will just give you one example here. The government had come out with this scheme, PM Kisan, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Yojana, PM Kisan. As part of this, 6,000 rupees are given to farmers, 2,000 rupees after every month, 3 times in a year. And farmers are feeling happy. But where is the money coming from? From them only. Diesel, which is being used by farmers for their pump sets, the cost of production is only around 40 rupees, 35-40 rupees. And the government is taxing from them, the government is charging from them 90 rupees and 100 rupees. That means, per liter of diesel they are paying 60 rupees as taxes, out of which they will be getting 2-3 rupees as subsidy. Because the government of India has collected only through the cess on diesel and petrol around 28 lakh crores, out of which this the farmer subsidy is only few thousand crores. That means the government is giving to them from the right hand 1 rupee, and from the left hand they are taking 100 rupees. Gujaratis, right? That is where it is who will be paying for them, and who is paying and who will be paying for them. These are all the things that we have to look at. So proceeding further, as I said, normally in economic terms, these subsidies are divided into broadly merit and non-merit subsidies. As I have mentioned, merit subsidies are those subsidies which are essential for the livelihood of people living below poverty line. They cannot survive without these subsidies. They simply cannot survive without these subsidies. They will simply die. They cannot survive without these subsidies. If these subsidies are not there, they will die. For example, during the corona crisis, the government of India had given, as part of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, free food grains. People don't have any work thanks to corona lockdowns. They had given free food grains, right? They don't have any work. Then how can they survive? They need something. That is what we call merit subsidy, without which they cannot survive, right? But the problem is that how to define this merit subsidy, because this term merit can be as elastic as plastic, right? Food is a merit subsidy, right? Then education, merit subsidy. Health, merit subsidy. Free electricity. If you happen to read Today Hindu, I think the person who had written an article, he said that color televisions are also merit subsidies. Why? Because he had come out with a great argument that when the color televisions are given to the poor people, it has enhanced their self-esteem, because they don't have to go to the houses of their neighbors to watch television. Excellent argument, right? And he also said that the color televisions are given to the poor people, that had resulted in a reduction in domestic violence also, right? This is what he said. So it is a merit subsidy. It is a merit subsidy. Similarly, free power. They call this free power also merit subsidy. Why? Because when people have access to this electricity, it helps the children to study more, as if they study only in the night, right? It has improved their standard of life. It has improved their self-esteem. Everything it can be justified. Every subsidy you are giving can be justified. It can be justified. So it is very, very difficult to define what exactly is merit subsidy. This is where we have to look at the experiments, experience of Western countries. Western countries also have spoken about these subsidies. They also had, given these subsidies. But what Western countries? Please remember, when I say Western countries here, I am talking about both communist as well as capitalist countries. What did communist countries do? Eastern Bloc after 1950s. They focused on two important things: education and health. Completely free they are given. Education and health. That is the reason why you can see any of these Eastern countries, they have excellent health facilities. Right? They have focused on education and health. Because this is what is necessary for any country in the long term, to transform their demographic bulge into demographic dividend. So whenever they talk about these subsidies, they are giving these subsidies, what you call these merit subsidies, education and health. Automatically what happens? You are focusing on human resource development. You are focusing on human resource development. This is what you can call them as merit subsidies, not color televisions, or not refrigerators, or not mixies, or not laptops. Right now, when Akhilesh Yadav was the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, he had given laptops. Right? Then you open the laptop, you have only Mulayam Singh Yadav photo as on the desktop, and it can never be removed also. And what will they do with the laptops? Because they don't have any electricity to charge it also. And they started eating it as cakes. That is what. And take the case of Bihar. The government has given bicycles to children, especially female, right? Girl child. Everything is good. But where is the school? Where is the school? And who are the teachers? Right? That is what we say. Cycles is a very good idea. Bicycle is a very good idea. But where is the school and where are the teachers? Where is the school and where are the teachers? This is where we are getting everything wrong. Do they need laptops or tablets now? You need a very good school. You need very good teachers. You need very good academic curriculum. Then you can talk about anything else. Right? This is where we talk about what you call non-merit populistic subsidies. Right? I think we can stop it here for today. As I said, every day we will continue. Right? Because it is a very good topic and very good topic from your examination point of view also. Right? So, coming back yesterday, we were discussing about Prime Minister of India, the office of Prime Minister of India. Yesterday, if you have any doubts, you can ask all your doubts. Yes. Prelims 2021. Yeah. Pardon? Where? No. In India, it is not citizen by birth. Any naturalized citizen also can become the head of the state. When UPSC says you have to take it, otherwise it is true. It is not true. Sonia Gandhi would feel bad. Right? Yes. Head of the state. Head of the state. Right? If you can acquire citizenship through any other means also, you are eligible. In India, if you acquire. In United States of America, if you are citizen by birth, then only you can become the head of the state. Why? Because America is a country of immigrants. So they wanted to have some kind of special features that you must take birth in America only for you to become eligible to be the thing. In India, we can have. It is the PM or the President. Normally, it is the Prime Minister only. Not, as I said, the President of India is only a nominal executive. Like Pratibha Patil, whenever you get bored, you will go to foreign countries. It does not mean that you are representing. Yes. Yeah, you cannot deny. Why? Because you are a normal, sane human being. You are not a mental person. Why? Because today you are giving permission and tomorrow you are rejecting. You should be there in Gangaram Hospital. Right? Simple. Consistency should be there. Yes. Whatever you want to say, he cannot. Not everything need to be mentioned in the constitution. Otherwise, you will have 2000 articles. Right? Be happy that it was not mentioned. Yes. Otherwise, the constitution, one article is that what kind of dress president should wear during the swearing in ceremony.